Hello, welcome. This video is going to be a step-by-step on the STAR test, Algebra 1 test that was released on May 2013. So I'm going to walk you through all the problems on this STAR release test. Okay, what you're going to need is the handout and also the calculator. Okay, first thing you want to do when you get your test is to turn on your calculator. Okay, and usually you're going to get a screen like that, and what you want to do is first clear the memory by pressing second memory 712 to reset the memory. Mainly that means that you're clearing the memory and resetting the calculator to the settings that TI just the way the calculator came out of the factory. Okay, once you have done that, what I need you to do is go ahead and press clear and press second window, and on this screen you want to highlight by pressing the down arrow, and you want to highlight the word ask. So you're going to press down arrow and also the right arrow to highlight this word ask. You want to press enter, and basically what you're doing there is you're making sure the calculator, when you have a table, the calculator is going to ask you for the ask value. So this is something that you want to do at the very beginning of the test, so the calculator is all set up and ready for you during the test. Also, every time you drop the calculator or something is not working right, try to reset the calculator and go through these steps again to make sure the calculator is ready for you for the test. Once you have done that, you can press second quit, and we're ready to start our test. So here we go. So basically we had a calculator set up for us, and we're ready to tackle the problem. So here's for question number 1. A dentist made the scatter plot below to show the number of cavities her patients had as related to the number of times they flossed their teeth each week. Which of the following best describes the correlation of the data? Correlation has to do with the points. So like, for example, if I had a graph where all the points are all over the place, I mean they're all scattered like that, that means this would be no correlation. But like on this graph, you almost can see a line being drawn over here. I'm going to draw it in red so you can see it. You almost can draw a line like this. Okay, and that's what's called the line of best fit. And if you notice, this line could be drawn because the points, even though they're scattered, there's a certain order to it. Okay, the more you move to the right, the lower the points get. Okay, so there is some relation or correlation between the points. Okay, now we go back to the definition of slope. If you see this red line would have a negative slope. So according to this, I would have a negative correlation. Let's imagine I have some points that would look like this. Okay, these points would have a positive correlation. Okay, and these points right here would have no correlation. Okay, alright, very well. Let's go on to the problem number 2. Problem number 2 is the following. What is the vertex of the graph of the quadratic function x squared plus x plus 10? Basically what the problem is asking is, here is a quadratic function, and basically where does the vertex is located? Okay, if I was to graph this graph, where would I find the graph? Where would I find the vertex? Well, this is where your calculator can come and help you. Okay, basically what you're going to do is going to press the Y button. Okay, and we are going to, let me try to bring into view here, enter that equation, which is x squared plus 6x plus 10, and press enter, and then we press the graph button, and as you can see over there on the graph, basically you have the coordinate 1, 2, 3, -3, and which looks apparently 1. Okay, so if I bring this to closer view, okay, you can see that this would be coordinate -3 and comma 1. Okay. Alright, so the calculator here helps us find out what the vertex is going to be. And if you notice here, I have that coordinate, so it would be letter H. Okay. Alright, so we're ready for the next page, or the next problem. Okay. Next problem is problem number 3. Problem number 3 is talking about which of the following graphs best represents a system of equation that has no solution. What is a system of equation? A system of equation is two or more equations. So basically here I have two lines, so two equations. And what happens with two lines, there's three things that could happen. I could have two lines that cross each other. And when they cross, whatever they meet, that's the solution. So that means if they cross, they have one solution. Okay. Alright. Another thing that could happen is I have a line and the second line is identical. In other words, the second line goes right on top of the other. So this is what is called IMS, infinitely many solutions. Okay, because there are an infinite number of solutions. There's an infinite number of points of intersection. So like any points on this line is a point of intersection. Okay. And the third and final thing that could happen is that the two lines never cross. So in other words, the two lines are parallel. Okay. So when this problem asks which one has no solution, basically what the problem is asking, which of these systems does not intersect. Okay, so basically I can go ahead and cancel letter B. And letter A and letter C, you have to use your imagination a little here and imagine that these lines go forever. So eventually these two lines are going to cross. Okay, so in other words, cannot be letter C. Also, letter A, if you pay close attention, they will meet somewhere down in the future. So we know it's not going to be letter A. And the one that looks like parallel is letter D. So letter D is our answer because there's no solution. Okay? Alright, let's go on to problem number 4. Okay? Here we go. Problem number 4 talks about a family will travel 350 miles from their house in order to reach Dallas, Texas. Which inequality can be used to find all possible values of t, the time it will take take this family to reach Dallas in hours if they travel at an average speed at least r miles per hour. Well, for this particular problem, you have to become familiar with the distance formula. The distance formula is defined as d for distance, v for velocity, times time. You know, it's like a car. If the distance that you travel in a car equals how fast you drive times how long you drive. Okay, so this is the velocity or speed times time. Okay, so this problem tells us this family is going to travel, and they're going to travel total distance of 350 miles. And they want to know which inequality can be used to find all possible values of t, the time it will take this family to reach Dallas in hours if they travel at an average speed. So instead of already using the word v, and they said the speed or velocity equals the letter r. So we're going to use the letter r over here times t. Now if you look at the multiple choices, all of them have t alone. So let's try to get the t alone. How would I get the t alone over here? Well, r is multiplying t. To get rid of the r, what I would do is do r, divide both sides by r. On this side, the r goes away. I'm left with t equals 350r. Alright, and because this is an equality, you can change sides. So this would be 350 over r. Alright, now this is an equation, and all we have here is inequalities. But according to this problem there's only one answer because the only one that has 350 over R is letter H, so we know it's letter H. Now the inequality signs, it doesn't make sense. The time has to be less or equal to this amount because I'm not going to travel any longer than that. Okay? So for this particular problem, you have to remember this formula: distance equals velocity times time. Okay? Alright? Alright, very well. Let's go on to the next one. The next one, it talks about the graph below shows the relationship between the number of dollars a worker earns and the number of hours worked. So time to work and amount earned. So it makes sense. The more time you work, the more money you're going to make. So if you notice, for 4 hours, I make about a little bit close to $40. And the more I work, the more money I'm making. Now, what does the slope of the graph represents? Anytime you see slope in a graph, remember the formula. Slope is m, and it's defined as rise over run. Okay? Remember, rise is your movement from up or down. Okay? And your run is your movement left or right. Okay? Depending how the graph goes. Okay? So, when I look at my rise would be my up and down. I'm talking about money. So basically, this would be money. And my run, my horizontal movement, would be described as time or hours, which makes sense. I'm sorry you cannot see that. Let me pull this paper over here. Okay, basically what I did here is my vertical movement is talking about money. My vertical movement, as described here, is talking about hours or time. And that makes sense because when you work, you're talking about money per hour. Okay? So let's take a look on the multiple choices. The number of hours, what does slope mean? The number of hours work it takes to earn $320. No, that's not right. The amount of money earned per hour. Amount of money earned per hour. That looks good. The amount earned for 40 hours of work. Nah, that doesn't make sense. The number of hours worked per dollar earned. Nope. Okay. Remember, the division, the word per means division. Okay. So basically, this guy is saying hours per dollar. And that's not what slope is. Slope is dollar per hour. And that's exactly what he's saying here. The amount of money, so dollar, earned per, that means division, hour. Okay? So please remember the word per means division. Also remember the word slope means rise over run, especially if you have a graph. And that should help you find your answer. Okay? Alright, very good. Let's go on to the next problem. Problem number 6. Okay? The problem says the perimeter of a rectangle is 42 centimeters. The length of the rectangle can be represented by x plus 4, and its width can be represented by 2x minus 7. What are the dimensions of this rectangle in centimeters? So basically, when I approach this problem, I like to draw a picture. First thing I remember is it's talking about a rectangle. Okay? And it's talking about the perimeter. The perimeter is giving us to be 42 centimeters. Okay? And is also talking about the length of the rectangle can be represented by x plus 4. And the width can be represented by 2x minus 7. Alright, very well. So that's basically the information that the problem is giving us. Now, when we talk about perimeter, let's think about perimeter of a rectangle. We have length and width. Okay? So length and width. Perimeter is defined as the sum of all sides, so this would be length plus width plus length plus width. Okay? Alright, so let me try to make it a little bit darker. One eye right. Alright. Okay. So, now, perimeter then, if I combine like terms, I have 2L's over here, so this would be 2L plus 2W. Alright? And you might have seen this formula before. If you haven't, that's okay. Okay? I mean, you don't have to remember this formula, you just have to remember the perimeter is the sum of all sides. But if you do, you can also use this formula. Okay? So basically, the problem is talking about the perimeter. Well, basically the problem is telling us the perimeter is 42. The problem also gave us information that the length is x plus 4. And the problem also told us that the width is going to be 2x plus 7. I'm sorry, not plus 7, minus 7. Okay? Alright, very well. With this information then, I basically have an equation where I can solve for x. So first thing I do is get rid of the parentheses. And this would be 42 equals 2x plus 4 plus 4x minus 14. And I made a mistake here. 2 times x is 2x, 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4x, 2 times negative 7 is 14. Alright? So what I'm going to do now is bring down the 42. I'm going to combine like terms. 2x plus 4x is 6x. Positive 8 minus 12 is negative 6. Now I want to get the x alone, so I'm going to move the 6 to the other side. So this would be 42 plus 6 equals 6x. When I add the 2, 42 plus 6 is 48, which equals 6x. Divided both sides by 6, x equals 8. Alright. Be very, very careful, because this is a trap for you. When people get x equals 8 and they see length equals 8, they get so excited and then go ahead and pick that one, not even checking the rest. Okay? Please remember, the problem is asking for the length and width. All we did is find x. What we need to do is come back over here, bring this information back here. Okay? If I plug it in, the number 8 for x, then this will become a 12. And if I plug it in 8 for x over here, this will become 2 times 8 is 16 minus 7 is 9. So basically my answer is letter J. Okay? Please remember that sometimes you're going to come up with an answer, but please make sure you read the problem to find out, is that exactly what the problem is asking me to find? Sometimes they put traps for you, hoping that you're going to pick the wrong answer. Also, some people try to do this without doing algebra. Basically, they say, oh, let me check. If I have a rectangle with length 10, right, and width 11, if I add all these numbers, would I get a 42? Yes. Do you notice that was the first multiple choice? That's a trap for you. Okay, please make sure that you're not falling into the trap. Okay. Okay, now problem number 7. Problem number 7 says, which of the following equations are represented by the graph? And here they have 4 equations, and they are asking which two are the correct ones. Well, first thing I notice is there's 2 equations here that has the y alone. Okay, we always want to have the y alone when we're graphing lines. Okay, since we only have 2, let's check the first one using a calculator. Let's press y. Let's clear, that's that problem that we did a few minutes ago. So let's clear that, and let's enter our new equation, which is negative 3 divided by 2 x. Let me bring up a little bit here. Okay, 2x minus 2. Okay, so basically that's our equation. It matches. Let's press graph. And if you notice, my graph is going on a negative slope, and this one has a positive slope. In fact, I didn't even have to graph this. If you pay attention to the slope here, the slope is a negative slope. This doesn't have a negative slope, so that this cannot be the equation of this graph. Alright, so let's go back to the y button, and let's enter the second equation by pressing parentheses. Oh, let's clear. Put parentheses, x minus 2, close parentheses, and then parentheses, x minus 3, close parentheses. So basically that's what I have over there. If I put the graph, I see that is a parabola, and it does not look like that. So basically 1 and 3 cannot be the answer. And if you notice here, by process of elimination, cannot be letter D, can then be letter B, and because it can also not be letter C, so that means letter A must be my answer. So here again we have another problem where the calculator made this problem very easy. Okay, but remember, you can only use the calculator if the y is alone. So for example, if I was checking this guy on the calculator, I would have to get the y alone. So basically, okay, and I'm only this to show you in case if that happened, in case you have to solve for y. But basically on this problem, you're done right now. Okay, I'm just showing you. Let's say if you had to solve for y, this is what you would do. Okay, you would move the 2x to the other side. So this would be negative 3y equals 6 minus 2x. And then you would divide both sides by negative 3. Y equals 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. And 2 divided by 3 cannot be divided, so we're going to leave as a fraction. So as you can see, my slope is 2 over 3. And my y-intercept is negative 2. And if you look at the graph, we see that the y-intercept is negative 2, and our slope is up 2 over 3. Up 2 over 3. Okay, you can also enter this in the calculator. Okay, and if we enter this in the calculator, this would be, let's clear it, negative 2 plus 2, negative 2 plus 2 divided by 3x. Press graph. That graph looks very similar to the one that we have here. It's a little bit distorted because the calculator, if you notice, the y values are a little bit squished and the x values is a little bit, have more space. Okay, but we can see that this graph has the same direction as the one on our paper. Okay, alright, for this guy right here, what I would do is, to get the y alone, all I would do is move the 2 to the other side like that. And since you have the calculator, you don't need to still simplify this. All you have to do is punch that in the calculator. So let's clear that, and let's enter 2 divided by 3, open parentheses, x minus 6, close parentheses, plus 2. Okay, basically that's what we have here. Press graph, and look again. We get the same graph. Okay, so please remember, the calculator is your friend, is available to you during the test, so make sure you're asking yourself, can I use the calculator for this problem? Because there are many problems on the test that you will be able to use the calculator. For example, let's look at the next problem. Can I use the calculator? Anytime you see something with y alone, or maybe you see a table, ask yourself, can I use the calculator? You bet. In this case, you can. So let's clear. Let's enter the new equation, x squared plus 3x, right? And basically I have that. Now we're going to use the table function. Okay, we're going to press second table. Remember the setup that we did at the beginning of the test? We make sure that the calculator is going to ask for the x value. So if you notice here, this column is blank, is because the calculator is waiting for you to enter the x values. Well, where do I get the x values? Right there. Here's the x values. So let's enter it. Negative 2, enter. Negative 1, enter. 0, enter. 1, enter. And 2. So basically, I enter the x values for my x column. And now all I have to do is compare the y value. Does this y value compares to these guys? Nope. So that's not my answer. Same thing happens on letter G. On the next one, look at this. -10, -4, 0, 2, 2. Aha! Voila! This is my answer. See, the calculator is my friend. Okay? And the next one, just for the sake of checking, if you notice, it started out the same, but the last two numbers are wrong. Okay? So you know it's not letter J. Alright? Okay, let's do number 9. Number 9 says, in which step below does the mistake first appear in simplifying the expression? Okay, so here we have an expression, and first thing I would do is get rid of the parentheses. So when I multiply this, I will get 0.5 times -12 is -6. 0.5 times 6 is +3. And if you notice, they all copy. They basically just copy what you have there. So basically, all they did is eliminate the first parenthesis, but there was no mistake there. So we know that step 1 is not the one where they made a mistake. Okay, the next step is they try to eliminate the next parenthesis. So okay, -3 times c is -3c. -3 times 4 is -12. So no mistake there either. The next step is to eliminate the third parenthesis. So basically multiplying 10 times c. 10 times -5 is -50. No mistakes there. No mistakes in step 3. Let's verify step 4. Basically, you would combine like terms. So it would be -6, -3 plus 10. You can do that in your head. You can do it in the calculator. For example, I just use -6 minus 3 plus 10. If you notice, basically I'm writing what I see over here. Please remember, when you start an expression, if you notice there, the little negative here is smaller than this one. Whenever you start with a negative number, always use this symbol. Okay, I'm pointing it out here. Okay, if you have a negative not in the beginning of the expression, you can go ahead and use this one. But always at the beginning of the expression, you must use this symbol right here. Okay. All right. So basically, what I did, I pressed -6 minus 3 plus 10, and if I press enter, give me a 1, which would be 1c. So basically they made a mistake right over here. Okay, so that means letter D is where they made a mistake. Okay, again, remember, you can do this in your head. -6 -3 is -9c, and then you have -9c plus 10 is +1c. Okay, so you don't need a calculator for that, but if you want to use the calculator is available for you. Please make sure you use it. Double check your signs and things like that. Okay. Alright, very good. Let's go on to problem number 10. Okay. Okay, problem number 10. The value of y varies directly with x. Which function represents the relationship between x and y if y equals 20/3 when x equals 3? Anytime you see the word varies directly with x, that means it falls into this format, y equals kx. Y varies directly with x. Okay, so basically there's a constant times x that gives you y. The problem is saying if y equals 20/3, okay, that means when does that y equals 20/3? When x equals 30. So basically, with the information they're giving you, you can solve for k. You can find what that number between the equal sign and the x is. If you notice, they all have y equal. They have a number in between the x, and we're trying to find that number. How do we do it? Basically solve for k. Okay, so basically what we can do is basically divide both sides by 30, and this would be k equals, and let me show you in the calculator how to do it. Okay, you're going to do 20 divided by 3, right, because we have 20 divided by 3, and then you're going to divide it by, again, 30. The calculator is going to give you a decimal. This is what you're going to do. You're going to press the math button, If you notice, when you press the math button, you have this list of things that you can do. We want to change something into a fraction, so we're going to select number 1. So basically we're going to take that answer, 0.2222222, and change into a fraction. And by pressing enter, the calculator takes this whole answer and changes to a fraction, 2/9. So guess what? We found out that that number between the y equals and the x is 2/9. So basically this is the equation we're looking for. And that's your answer. Alright? So, if you ever see the word varies directly with x, that means you're going to have y equals k times x, okay? And you're looking for the letter k. Alright? Very good. Alright. Problem number 11. Problem number 11 says a table of values for the exponential function f is shown below. Which situation could represent this function? Okay. Well, as you can see, let's see here what it says. Which situation could describe the function? The value of the house increases by approximately 2 3/4% per year. The value of the house increases by 3,850 per year. The value of the house decreases by approximately 2 3/4% per year. The value of the house increases by 3,850 per year. Okay. Sometimes when you approach a problem, you can always ask also which answer is obviously not the answer. If you look at this table, what is happening to the numbers? Are they increasing or decreasing? Well, if you notice, the numbers are increasing. So basically, letter C and letter D are wrong because they're talking about that the value is decreasing. The value is increasing. And then the question is, which the two answers left are is the correct answer. Well, let's look at letter B. The house increases 3,850 per year. Well, let's check that out. We started out with $140,000 the first year. And if we add 3,850, that gives me the second number. Okay, that's okay. Let's try it again. Plus 3,850. Does it give me the third number? Doesn't give me the number. It's close, but not the same. So what do we know? That letter B is not the answer. Okay? Alright, so by the process of elimination, we know it's letter A. Now, if you want to know exactly how to get that 2 3/4, basically what happened is, how do you do percentage? Okay, percentage, okay, 2 3/4 is the same as 2.75, right? Because 3/4 is 75 cents, so it's 2.75. Anytime you see percentage, you want to change to a decimal. How do you change the percentage to a decimal? You take the decimal point and you move 2 places to the left. So in other words, this is going to give you 0.0275. Okay? Alright. So basically, you're going to have $140,000 plus an increase. How do you calculate that increase? You take the percentage, 0.0275, and you multiply by that amount, which is 140,000. Okay? So you press enter, and look at that, I got the same number. So now we're going to do it again. 1,430,850 plus the 0.0275 times 143,850. And let's see what happens. Aha! I'm getting the next number. If you notice, if you round this to the nearest whole number, this would be 147,806. So this is a confirmation that it is correct. Okay. All right. So that's one way to verify. But even then, if you notice, when we approached this problem, we were able to eliminate letter C and D by noticing that the board says decrease, and you're looking at the table, it's increasing. We were able to eliminate letter B because every time that you add 3,850, you're not getting these numbers. So you didn't really have to understand percentage here. All you had to do is eliminate the wrong ones, okay? So that was one way to do it, okay? Alright, very well. Let's go on to the next problem. Alright, next problem talks about system of equations given in a word problem, okay? So here we have, there are 9 books stacked on a shelf, okay? The thickness of each book is either 1 inch or 2 inches. And the height of each stack, and the height of the stack of 9 books is 14 inches. So basically, I have 9 inches stacked together, okay? Some are 1 inch, some are 2 inches, okay? And the height of it is 14 inches, okay? Which system of equations can be used to determine x, the number of 1 inch thick books on the stack, and the y, the number of 2 inches thick books, okay? Usually on system of equations, you're going to have 2 quantities. So, and the problem tells you what the quantities are. You have the x and the y, okay? X represents the 1 inch book. The y represents the 2 inches book. Now, you want to create 2 equations, okay? So here I have the 1 inch books plus the 2 inch books equals a total of 9 books, okay? Alright, so basically this is talking about books. Now let's talk about inches. The problem tells us that these books together gives you 14 inches. Alright, remember this is the number of books. So to create our second equation, we have to add the inch in front of the variable. So how many inches the letter x? Well, is 1 inch, so you put 1 inch in front of it. And what is the inches for the y value? Well, the y value would be 2 inches, okay? And basically that's the equation we're looking for. The 1 inch books plus the 2 inch books equals 9 books, okay? So this type of books plus this type of books equals a total of 9 books. And this is talking about inches, so you need to put inches in front of each variable. 1 inch books plus 2 inch books equals 14 inches. And by having this in mind, then, we know that the answer is going to be letter H. Okay? Alright, we're going to stop the problems right now, and we're going to move to, if you want to see the next few problems, please move on to the next session. But thank you very much for your time. Have a great day.